on the air. You don't have, unless it is because I'm like a liberal freakout, right? I can't put up with white supremacy, because that's really what, you might not be able to see it. Either you don't want to, or you just...
Okay, so what if there's a black squatter and a black homeowner? That's not white supremacy.
See, white supremacy is not an affliction of skin. It is a state of mind.
Yes, because every living creature needs a place, and some of them don't have a place because society has forced them out. Maybe because of age, gender, race, native. Like, wow, we've really messed things up.
Do you own property?
I own a car. Yeah.
Okay, so if
Somebody stole my car, how would I feel about it?
yeah, would you apply that to the same standard to your vehicle?
If they needed my vehicle and they were down bad and it happened, I would just move on with my life. Because I don't
So
think
you would-
private property should exist.
Then why not just go and give your car to someone who's down bad?
Because I need it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So would you agree with the legislation that Governor DeSantis just passed in Florida, stating that now homeowners can call the local sheriff's office and have squatters trespassed from their property?
1,000%. In fact, doing so ensured the value of property in that state. A governor that does the opposite is actually guaranteeing that anyone with 2 brain cells firing would want to move from that jurisdiction and even consider moving from a country that would allow that.
If anyone's read history, please read the Bolshevik Revolution, read the Communist Revolution. This is how it starts. This is what we're living through. We're living through a real-life Marxist subversion. This is how it starts. Destroy any semblance of normalcy, law, understanding of family, culture, anything, and then everything is possible. Everything is up in the air, and you no longer have a society.
Because then it's like, oh, you can't be here, all right, but then we're going to complain about when they're like sleeping on the bench. Like, where are they going to go, though? You just want to eradicate them. So I feel like eradication isn't the solution.
I don't think anyone's advocating for eradicating squatters. That's a bit harsh. I think they just don't want them on their property that they pay for, right?
No, it is harsh, but I feel like when you make it impossible to exist, it's basically telling us in a very gaslit way that we just simply don't want people around.
Yeah, I just want to say squat the planet. Squatters' rights fucking forever.
Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Aaron with American Interviews. Today we're out here at the Arcata Plaza for the farmers market to ask the question, should squatters have rights? We're gonna find out.
What do you want me to say?
Well, whatever your opinion is. You said squatters should have rights, right?
Yeah, I believe that all people deserve a right to sleep safely, covered, fed, and everything else. Less on nuclear warheads and more on people.
Okay, do you mind if I ask you a couple follow-ups to that?
You can ask me.
Cool. So, you think that everyone should have a roof over their head? I would agree with that, but do you think that they have the right to trespass on someone else's property and take it over, is the question.
Well, it depends if it is not being used, hasn't been used in a long time, it's just an eyesore. Yeah, why not?
What if it's someone's vacation home? Do you think that someone should be able to take over someone else's vacation home when they still pay the mortgage and utilities and stuff like that?
No. I don't think they should break into somebody's personal house. I'm talking about abandoned buildings, blah, blah, blah.
Okay. So today we're asking the question, should squatters have rights?
Well, the fact is squatters do have rights, but that varies. So I guess the question is, what kind of rights should they have? I think that I've seen some of the recent stories about folks in certain states being able to get squatters' rights in 30 days or something like that. And I think that's probably too easy. But I think there's probably certain situations where properties are being neglected, could be put to better use, where if a squatter can obtain access and live there long enough and care for the property and follow the rules that are set forth under the squatters' laws, then who am I to say that they shouldn't be able to do that?
Okay.
I think that those rules are put there for a reason.
Well, the rules were put there in the 1800s because there were homesteaders occupying unclaimed land. That's where the rules came from originally.
Okay. And if they've survived to this day, then they must have a modern function. And I think there are certain situations where they're obtained in a sort of neglectful landlord situation where people are living in properties and they're not maintained and they don't pay their rent, but they end up obtaining squatters' rights. I think those situations are probably where they're the most just, where it's just being sort of used as sort of a grifter game to take away somebody else's property. I'm going to disagree with that, but I think that there are probably situations where it could be considered legitimate.
Yeah. Do you think you could expand on a situation maybe where you would think it would be legitimate?
Well, like I was just saying, perhaps in a situation where you were a tenant to a slumlord and they didn't perform up to their duties as a landlord, and based on you stop paying rent but live there for a year or something like that, then if under the law that is considered reasonable at the current time, I'm not going to argue with it. From a moral point of view, it gets a little bit more gray, but there is an obligation. Landlords have obligations too, and so I feel like in those types of situations is where it starts to become a little more legally and morally ambiguous. It's not easy. It's easy for me to say somebody just comes into my house, sits down, stays there for a month without my permission, and I'm actively trying to get them out, and now they somehow have rights over my properties. I think that's wrong. Other situations, I can't tell you a specific legal case. I can't cite that, but I can, from what I understand of the laws and understand of certain situations that arise, I can see that there will be times where it is legally and morally acceptable.
So today we're asking the question, should squatters have rights? As in, should squatters' rights exist?
Right. I'm glad you clarified it. Of course, squatters have rights as human beings.
Correct.
But with respect to can they squat in property and just take it? Hell no. We have a very established process for that. If there is legitimate adverse possession, it has to be open, notorious for a long period of time. The person has to pay property tax on it. At a certain point, it is legitimate in the American system for a squatter or adverse possessor to get rights, but not instantly when someone's on vacation from their vacation home or in between putting a house on the market. Absolutely not. And the fact that local law enforcement is taking the side of the lawbreakers instead of the side of the property owners to which those civil servants have sworn a duty is outrageous. I mean, our Constitution specifies life, liberty, and property. These are property rights. So I'm against squatters' rights in that sense.
Right.
Absolutely.
So would you agree with the legislation that Governor DeSantis just passed in Florida stating that now homeowners can call the local sheriff's office and have squatters trespassed from their property?
1,000%. In fact, doing so ensured the value of property in that state. A governor that does the opposite is actually guaranteeing that anyone with 2 brain cells firing would want to move from that jurisdiction and even consider moving from a country that would allow that.
Right. There has been a viral video circulating the social media outlets of a man who is an illegal immigrant, and he has proclaimed that him and his friends have already taken over 6 to 7 houses, and he is teaching people how to take control of squatters' rights and encouraging people to come over from different countries to do that here.
I'm familiar. He's also suggested a $10,000 extortion fee for moving. Now, my comment on that young man and his social viral video was, he is a winner, and he does have a place in our society if he can get his morals right. Because he's a hustler, and he sort of does have some parts of the American spirit. But the part about stealing from another person in order to get it, no. But I do think that he had the right type of gumption, and I'm in favor of free speech, and I'm in favor of gumption, just not stealing.
Right. Right. Did you hear about the case in New York where a woman came back to her apartment and there were squatters there and she was beaten to death?
Yes, I did. And in fact, since you mentioned New York, that's a terrible tragedy. But I would also point out that Kevin O'Leary, who mentioned that as a businessman, is this analogous point about Trump's gigantic fine. Using lawfare and distorting the laws is going to have the effect that people will not do business in that state. And furthermore, there are business entities that would have been on the New York Stock Exchange that are now rethinking, should they be on the New York Stock Exchange? One of the most important things about our country is that the New York Stock Exchange has provided this method of allowing people to invest in great American companies. But if it's located in New York, there's a possibility that some insane prosecutor in New York could try to exercise jurisdiction over transactions that relate to people's retirement and other things. So I think it's a tragedy what's going on in these ultra left states. We have these rules for a reason. It's like they say, you can't break down or tear down a fence with any sense unless you make sure why someone built that fence. So if there's a fence and maybe it was protecting the kids from going in the gully and having an injury, or maybe it was to keep wild animals out, unless you're sure, you don't tear down the fence. And so what these people are doing is tearing down the legal fences that have existed to protect life, liberty, and property in this country. And I don't think we should stand for it.
Right. Well, I appreciate your very poignant take, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
God bless America. Happy
Thank you. God bless America.
Yeah, I just want to say squat the planet, squatters' rights fucking forever. Read Peter Linebaugh, learn about the enclosure of the commons, property is theft. Mwah.
All right. Yeah. What was your name again?
Jack.
Jack. Nice to meet you.
I got some thoughts on your board.
Oh yeah, the squatters' rights.
Yeah. I saw the last video I was in. I thought I made some good points that you could have included, but it's all right. I understand.
It was getting so long.
Yeah.
It was getting so long.
For sure. Yeah.
So the question we're asking today is, should squatters have rights?
Do landlords have rights? Do we have a right to exclude people from the things that we need? Is housing, do we take things that people need to live and say, you have to deserve to be able to live and have access?
I don't think it's a deserve situation. Everyone deserves to have a home, but can you afford it? Are you taking over it illegally?
So this kind of goes to the idea, do billionaires really earn their wealth? I believe
yes.
That they don't. I believe that capitalism, there is no capitalism without exploitation.
Okay.
That is inherent to it, the system. So we see billionaires, we're like, they earn their wealth.
Socialism is also all about exploitation.
I'm talking about this. Okay, when we see homeless people, do they not deserve anything just because they don't have money?
I don't think anyone is saying that.
But that's how we treat them as our society.
That's not how I treat them.
No, that's how we treat. That's why we have homeless people.
Is that how you treat them?
No, I can't.
Okay, well, you're saying we, and I'm not including myself in that we.
Collectively. Our society, the same society, it's not like, oh, we have billionaires and we have homeless. We have billionaires because we have homeless. I believe that the ruling class needs homelessness to exist as a threat to us. It's showing us you need to work your ass off. Doesn't matter if you like your job. You don't have to like it, but you don't want to be homeless, right? Because look,
You don't think that there's some people that are homeless that choose to be homeless because
yeah, because who would want, this is a society that really privileges people who fit into a certain category, you know, the bell curve, those who fit within the 60% of or so, you know, who really, it's not that they don't have anything to offer, it's that our society doesn't value what they have to offer. So some people, yeah, just they don't want to. I mean, who?
I think maybe a portion of those people never really worked on any skills that were valuable and never offered them to the community around them, and they chose to do drugs and stay on the streets. Do you think that maybe a small portion of those people?
I think that a lot of what that kind of comes from, like you're like, oh, it's just this person just chose that life. You just chose that life. I didn't choose this life. I was just born into it. Just like this whole thing with immigration is like I didn't choose to be born here either. Those people didn't chose born in another country.
But there are legal paths to get things,
just like in this
right?
immigration crisis, they could document every person that come. They could be like, all right, come in. We're gonna set you up with an ID. We're gonna get you situated in our society. But rather, they'd spend money on like having people swim across the river, drown, and you know, creating this whole. It's a
You think that the U.S. is encouraging people to swim across the Rio Grande?
Yes, by saying you could walk across this road that has been open. We are the colonial occupiers on this land, and we're telling these people who are indigenous to this continent that you don't belong here. That's bullshit. And our whole country is founded upon white supremacy. This whole thing of squatters' rights is founded upon white supremacy. White supremacy is founded in human supremacy. But this racism was invented because it was, all right, human supremacy is the subjugation of nature as other, right? So we can dominate and do as we will, which contrasts to the indigenous perspective. But so that human supremacy, some people were like, not just any humans, but white humans. And that's white supremacy and where racism is from.
Okay, so you're getting a little esoteric on me.
Oh, because this is about squatters, but it's not really about that. It's about
It really is, though, about squatters. Should squatters have rights? That's the question.
Should people have a right to live?
That's not the question.
But that's essentially, like, you're talking about some bullshit. You're trying to kind of frame it in this way. I'm saying, do people have a right to live? Do people have a right?
I'm framing it within the confines of squatters. And squatters do have rights, and I'm asking, should they have rights?
I'm saying that...
And you've brought it to now colonialism and white supremacy.
Because, yeah, you got it. That's it. We are the colonial occupiers on this land, and you're telling me you can't have a house because you just didn't work hard enough. You don't deserve it. But billionaires deserve to have rockets, and you know, I cannot reconcile that. Like, we live in a society, the wealthiest country on earth, supposedly. We have the wealthiest people and the poorest people. How does that work?
I'm just not even going to entertain this here because you're not answering the question, really. You're just kind of, you keep veering off into critical race theory or something. Colonialism, white supremacy, capitalism, this is the only thing you've been talking about.
Yeah.
Instead of squatters. You have said the word squatters once, maybe.
Because I know it's beyond that. I know you come here to make a video and frame it and look at, oh, you know, but I'm telling you, it's deeper than that. It's a deeper issue. And that's what we're seeing as a country. You know, like, I don't know if you see, but there's a growing tension, right? Can we agree on that? There's a growing tension within the United States.
Correct.
It's really, what do we want to be as a country? Are we going to... Some people have an idea of what we should be. And that's arguably founded on white supremacy. But there's a lot of people, well, actually, white supremacy doesn't benefit anyone, even white people. It benefits the ruling class who sell that lie to us so that it keeps us pacified. At least, right? It's at least I'm not black, right? That can lift up even the white people who have been cast out. So you want to make it about squatters? I'm getting to the.
I'm asking a very specific question.
Okay. Should squatters have rights? The right to a house?
That's not what it is, man. You are conflating many issues.
because I've got a lot of feelings, and I felt you didn't. Yeah, I know.
I think this is why your interviews didn't make it into the video last time either, because you veer off into left field where it doesn't make sense to the topic of the video. So I have to cut things that aren't pertaining to the topic of the video. If you want to have a conversation about your ideas about colonialism and white supremacy, I'd be happy to sit down with you sometime and make that a separate thing, but that's not what this video is about.
Right, because this is what you want it to be about. You want it to be about...
Correct, because I'm the curator of the channel.
And I know this is not going to go on the air. You don't have, unless it is because I'm like a liberal freakout, right? I can't put up with white supremacy, because that's really what, yeah, you might not be able to see it. Either you don't want to, or you just...
Okay, so what if there's a black squatter and a black homeowner? That's not white supremacy.
See, white supremacy is not an affliction of skin. It is a state of mind. People have...
All right, man. I can't. No, I can't.
You don't have to like it.
You're just veering off too much.
You asked me about that.
No, I asked you a specific question, and you're taking it into... You're conflating many issues, and it doesn't make any sense. So I think we're going to just end this interview.
I believe that humans should have rights, and I do understand people seeing the should squatters have rights.
Human rights and squatters' rights are two completely different things.
Right. No, squatters, and what is your definition of squatters?
Well, it's clearly defined within the law. Yeah.
And I mean, it's people who are squatting. More than just like, I feel like when we label, like, obviously
it can either be a tenant who has occupied a house for an extended period of time and they can claim squatters' rights, or it could be a trespasser who is illegally entering into a property and staying there without the owner's permission for an extended period of time.
I think that both, like, people who are squatting and people who own property should have rights of their own and corresponding to their own individual needs.
Right, their own human rights, but we're talking about the right to the property that they're existing in. That's what squatters' rights are.
Right, and I feel like simply like, oh, should they have rights? It's completely ignoring like so many of other things and so many different needs that need to be addressed before simply diving into like, should squatters have rights? I feel like as people, we should realize that things are way more complex than we make them, and simply by diving into just concentrating on should squatters have rights, we are ignoring like the complexity of like the issues that we are dealing with in our...
Can you expand on the issues, and because you're not being very specific about what issues that need to be addressed before we address squatters' rights. Right. Could you expand on that?
Yeah, of course, right. So so we're talking about squatters' rights, and people, I understand when people own property and, you know, people come and disrespect their property that they work hard to own. And like, because we all have to, you know, play our role that we've been given here in society as someone who's born with, you know, our birth certificate and being here in the United States, whatever, you know, country you live in. So I completely know and like respect where people are coming from who own property. But I also am the type of person that before just completely wanting to erase an issue or eradicate a group of people, it's more questioning why they are in that position. And I feel like we need to tackle down people's needs, and it's all based on needs. And like people here are questioning, well, they're just people who are doing drugs and are tweakers and such. And I understand, but I feel like my level of compassion just comes to be like, why is there such high rate of people who have drug issues and, you know, have depression and, you know, are struggling financially? And I feel like we should question that, and like, as a society who states to have power, wealth, intelligence, and technology, I feel like we should definitely start going towards the path of like using that technology and using that intelligence to actually do something about depression, drug use, drug addiction, and all those other issues that are primarily the issue of homelessness and, you know, all, yeah, just seeing people who are houseless. And I myself have been houseless for a while, and I now thankfully have a place to live and a roof over my head. And that came out of hard work, and that came out of like having to get myself together and having resources to like help me like my mental stability. And I feel like that was like hard for me to reach and get, and I had to go out and find those resources. So I feel like making those resources available to people in a more sustainable way is probably the way that we should go to, be able to not just be like, should squatters have rights, but it not being such an issue that we have to worry, like reduce the numbers. Like, yeah, squatters are still, maybe that it's still going to be an issue, but we can definitely decrease the number of people who are squatting.
So you think that the things that you mentioned, taking care of like social issues, would help prevent squatting happening?
Yes, I feel like if people were more financially, emotionally, and mentally stable, the number of people who are squatting would definitely decrease. Yes.
I could agree with that, but you also run into the issue of, yes, if we bolster our social programs and stuff like that, that will help our citizens. But what about people who come here illegally and start squatting?
People who come here illegally, well, that would be such a hard topic to dive into because I'm personally someone who, isn't pro-imperialism, border separation. I'm very about humanity and people. So I think borders and the history that comes with that, the foundation which this country was built upon, it's a very hard, deep subject to dive into right now. So, I've had family members myself who came into the country illegally who I think are just on land. The land doesn't have borders, it's humans and the government who placed them. So they're just simply on land. And they're amazing people. The people that I know who, now they've worked their way to, legally be here, thank God. But yeah, I definitely do feel like the circumstances exist because the circumstances have been placed, and
I'm definitely not going on camera.
it's just a chain of pain that goes on, and a cycles are just gonna keep going until us as a society and are willing to take the steps to take ourselves towards a better future, whatever that means.
Okay, so to address the squatters question, though, do you think squatters should be able to inhabit a house after they've trespassed?
I think that they have right to housing, and it should be.
But that's a separate issue.
Right, and I do feel like they should have rights that doesn't have to involve other people's property. Right, so we should be addressing their need, right? It's addressing people's needs, and that's something that we should be doing, addressing their need of housing without having to, involve somebody else's, because we need to address everyone's needs, right? So if someone's property isn't being respected and that's affecting them financially, then their needs aren't being met. So I feel like we should definitely use our technology and our human intelligence to find a solution so everyone's needs are met. Yeah.
Right. But that's
both the property owner and the squatters.
Right, but that doesn't take care of the immediate issue of someone who's trespassed in someone's house and now are occupying it with squatters' rights.
Right, and I feel like the immediate response would be for our government to realize that we're having so much issues, and instead of sending a bunch of money to other countries, we should probably be housing or making housing more available to people. Yeah, right. And making different programs, and that can be immediate action. Definitely.
So you would say you agree with squatters having rights then? If I were to surmise what you've been saying, you haven't really given me a straight answer.
I am a very complex person to say squatters should have rights. I feel like people who are squatting should have rights. Yes. Yeah.
There are cases where landlords are forced to pay the utility bills for squatters. Would you agree with that?
No, I feel like that's very unfair. Again, that's not meeting the needs of everybody, and so I see where the issue comes. And I feel like people who are squatters because of their actions are now, squatters legally. Shouldn't just be dismissed, as well as the person who has a property shouldn't be dismissed either. There's different ways to solve issues, like, because then it's like, oh, you can't be here, all right, but then we're going to complain about when they're like sleeping on the bench. Like, where are they going to go though? You just want to eradicate them. So I feel like eradication isn't the solution.
I don't think anyone's advocating for eradicating squatters. That's a bit harsh. I think they just don't want them on their property that they pay for, right?
No, it is harsh, but I feel like when you make it impossible to exist, it's basically telling us in a very gaslit way that we just simply don't want people around, and like
you're conflating issues. People don't want people to trespass on their property without permission. That's the issue at hand, yeah. So if you paid for a house and someone was squatting there for 30 days and you called the police, you can't have them trespassed from your property. You have to go through an eviction process. Do you agree with that?
Well, if I was in that situation, wow, I don't think I would have the heart to put out, like, let's say a family of like a husband.
So you would just let them occupy your house?
I would, because I wouldn't have the heart to put children and women into the streets. Yeah, so that's.
Would you pay their utilities as well?
I wouldn't pay. Nobody
would be forced to.
Nobody would pay anything. I don't think I should be forced. I don't think I would be forced to. There's no forcing. And if that whole idea of like, let's force.
If landlords shut off utilities for squatters, they can be in trouble for that by the law.
If there is a need to enforce anything, then then doesn't it come back to the law? We should be, as people, making demands to this law that is making us have to do such harsh things, don't you think?
So today we're asking the question, should squatters have rights?
I feel like they should have rights, but not too many. Because, like, yeah, they should have a place to live and such, but, like, they have a little bit too much power, in my opinion. Like, maybe, like, put it, like, down a notch or something.
It's different in different states. California's laws are if you openly occupy the property for 5 years and actively pay property taxes, you own the property after the 5 years. Do you agree with that?
I mean, like, yeah, you're paying for it, so.
Yeah, but you're not paying the mortgage or the utilities.
Oh, yeah, that's different. I don't really have a proper opinion on that, I'll be honest. Like, I'd have to look up a little bit more into it, but
commendable.
Yeah.
For sure. So what is your understanding of squatters' rights to where you think that they should have some rights?
I feel like they should have some rights. In the case, like, if the owner chooses not to really do anything about it, like, they have permission to be there, but isn't until, like, proper authority comes into play where they, like, slowly start to lose those rights.
Right. So a property owner can't trespass a squatter if they're there for at least 30 days. They have to go through an eviction process, and the police won't help. What do you think about that?
I feel like that's messed up. Like, they own the property. Right. Like, so it's technically, like, from my perspective, it's their property. It's not the squatter's property.
Right.
So if anything, it seems more like squatters trespassing more than, like, you know, actually, like, being there and living there.
Right. So, but they're not considered trespassers after 30 days.
Oh, I can see that, yeah.
So what rights do you think they should have?
I feel like they should have the right to at least, like, I want to say kind of appeal, but not really. Like, they should give some proper reasons as to why they should stay. But overall, you know, like, I feel like they have a little bit too much power right now. Yeah.
Is there a proper reason for someone able to stay in a property that they've taken over illegally? Do you think that there's a proper reason for that?
Not really, but I feel like somewhere out there, there's, like, someone's going to come up with a really good reason why. Because, like, knowing people, like, they'll come up with, like, the most creative answers and such. But overall, no, not really.
Well, the law has existed since the 1800s. It came into place when we were homesteaders and there was a lot of open property and unclaimed land. So that's where that comes from. Do you think that that may be a little outdated in today's age?
Oh, that's very outdated. Like now people actually own property. There's like actual like areas of like property lines. Like it's pretty outdated, and like you said, it's super old considering like it's what 2024. That's like I want to say almost 100. Yeah.
A little over. But
Yeah.
So have you changed your position at all after having this short conversation on squatters? Do you think they should still have some rights?
No, not really. I feel like they should like lose those rights a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Governor DeSantis of Florida just passed some legislation in Florida saying that now homeowners can call the sheriff to evict squatters without having to trespass them from their property without having to go through the courts in an eviction process. What do you think about that?
On paper, I don't really know much about it, but on paper it sounds like a really good law to have. Like very handy for like homeowners and such.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like gives them a little bit more power to their actual property.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Well, I appreciate your opinion.
Thank you.
Thanks for stopping to talk to me.
Have a good one.
You too. So today we're asking the question, should squatters have rights?
As far as to the property they trespass to, or
Correct.
no?
Or any of the rights that they're given by the government?
Absolutely not. Property owners should have rights. They paid for it, they worked for it, the law should be on their side. This insane overarching ideology of compassion is unattainable. There's no such thing as utopia. You can't make sure everyone has a house, healthcare, food. Some people are different. Not everyone thinks the same. And to have an overarching methodology for everyone while charging the people that are actually doing the work is absolutely insanity, and it's the definition of injustice. It's an insane world, and if anyone's read history, please read the Bolshevik Revolution, read the Communist Revolution. This is how it starts. This is what we're living through. We're living through a real-life Marxist subversion. This is how it starts. Destroy any semblance of normalcy, law, understanding of family, culture, anything, and then everything is possible. Everything is up in the air, and you no longer have a society.
Yeah. So I don't know if you overheard when you were standing here, but Governor DeSantis just passed a law or legislation in Florida.
No squatter rights. I also agree against his ban in teaching kids pedophilic grooming literature in school. I'm against his racist DEI bans. I'm against all of this. Like I was telling the gentleman, I'm originally from Ukraine. We lived under this communist Marxist crap. We were afraid to talk in public. We had to double speak. We had to lie. We lived in 1984. And for us to come here in 1988 and 36 years later see this country, the only free, real free country where a whole world sends their best, their worst to do their best. This is the only place you could do it. Go anywhere in the world and try to use your own 2 feet to build something. Cultures won't accept you. You will not be able to break through the barriers of religion, race, nationality. This is the only place left, and that is precisely why the world's powers are trying to destroy it. This is the last bastion of freedom and civilization in the world. Like it or I don't care. I really don't. The history proves it, the literature proves it, and the actual actions of our government and the results prove it. We're being invaded. It's a real-life insurrection. Anyone who's ever done the election was stolen 22. I know that's allergic to most people to hear, but it's a fact. The information's there, the numbers are there, the recording, everything is there. And to finalize it, Trump 2024 is our only solution.
I appreciate your opinion.
No problem.
Yeah.
No problem, and I have no problem speaking the truth and taking what comes with it. We're living at a time where people are afraid to stand up for what they believe, and that is part of the problem. When others see you no longer stand up for things that people used to, they have no problem laying down for those things either. So if you don't take a stand, you'll fall for anything, and I choose to take a stand.
I appreciate your opinion.
No problem, brother. Thank you for
Yeah,
doing
thank you. Yeah, no problem. Have a good day.
Of course they do. Everybody has rights.
Yes,
Human
but
rights.
squatters' rights. We're not talking about human rights.
Well, where are we talking? Like, where are the squatters' rights supposed to be?
Well, they're clearly defined within the law.
Yes.
Right.
So if they're clearly defined within the law, then yes, they should have their rights.
Okay, but that's we're asking, should those rights exist?
Yes. Yes.
Can you expand on that?
Yes, because every living creature needs a place, and some of them don't have a place because society has forced them out. Maybe because of age, gender, race, native. Like, wow, we've really messed things up. We need to get together and fix it and let everybody have their rights and let everybody have a place to stay.
Okay. I could probably agree with that, but do you think that people should be able to trespass on other people's property and take it over? Is really the question at hand.
I know of people that have done that. I wouldn't personally, but again, you have to think. You're thinking that they're squatting illegally, but I'll tell you that I came from indigenous America, and they killed all my people and took all my land and took my grow, and I can't have my medicine. So, yeah, I feel that. And, like, I can't grow or anything. So, like, how do you take all that away? And there is a clearly bound place for people that do not have a place to go. And it used to be by BLM, by all waterways, that's supposed to be legal for anybody to be on. I'm not saying that somebody had a house there, go in there and break into their house and take theirs. No, that's stupid. We don't need to do that. But we do need a clearly defined place, which they no longer have, for other people to be in that can't say they can't be inside or they just don't want to be. Like, who says you have to be? You know? That's how I feel.
Okay. Governor DeSantis just passed legislation in Florida giving homeowners the rights to call the sheriff's department and have squatters trespassed from their property. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, they have had those rights for a while. Well, I don't know, he just passed it into law, but they've been doing that for a while. And yes, I agree with that. If you're on somebody else's property, that's not cool. You know, it's just not cool. That is stealing and maybe vandalizing. Not cool. Like I said, we need to get legislation or somehow make or bring back the places that were given to everyone freely. And yeah, we need to get that back. Because that's why they're infringing on other people's property and taking things and vandalizing things because they don't have anything. You've taken away their things. You see, it's like a cycle. Yeah, you take away their way to live or whatever, sleep, anything. That's what happens. And if they did the right thing and returned the places for people to be, I bet all of that would stop.
So today we're asking the question, should squatters have rights? Not as in human rights, but squatting rights. It's been conflated a lot today, so I just wanted to make that clear.
I think we should abolish private property.
Really?
Yes.
You don't think anyone should be able to own property?
I think that as things exist, squatting should be allowed because people own property. Property shouldn't just sit empty, and if they are, they should be seized by people who need them. But I think we should work towards a world where people can have housing that's not based on how much money you have or how much access to capital or resources. It should just be a basic resource. And so if squatting is a means to like obtain that necessary right, that like intrinsic dignified right, which is not a human right, but access to housing is. And squatting as something that's illegal, I think the legality of it should be usurped for the necessity of access to material resources like housing.
Right. The access to housing is readily available for people, but the right to take someone else's property and make it their own is really what I'm getting after here. Do you think that should be allowed?
I think that if the property is empty, it's empty.
What if it's someone who has worked very hard to create a business and they finally are able to buy a vacation home for themselves and they only occupy it a couple months out of the year? You think someone should be able to take that over?
How often does that happen?
That's not really the question.
That's my return question, though. Like squatting, if we're going to talk about that, that's a particular type of squatting. But if we're going to talk about squatting at large,
Okay, explain squatting at large to me then.
Squatting at large is either breaking or entering, or just breaking and entering or entering into a property that you do not own and staying there, occupying it, staying there for extended periods of time and potentially refusing to leave. And then
So you think that that should be allowed?
Yes, I think so. Or I don't really care if it is or not, but I'm down with it.
Do you own property?
I own a car. Yeah.
Okay, so if
Somebody stole my car, how would I feel about it?
yeah, would you apply that to the same standard to your vehicle?
If they needed my vehicle and they were down bad and it happened, I would just move on with my life. Because I don't
So you
think
would-
private property should exist.
Then why not just go and give your car to someone who's down bad?
Because I need it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. So then that begs the question: if you own property and you need your property, and someone takes it over, should they have the right to do that?
I don't think that I care about whether or not they have the right to. I think that everybody has the right to a dignified life, which includes having housing. And if they cannot have access to housing and they do it by illegal means, then all the power to them. I feel like you have a bias.
But it's not really.
Asked a
It's
question and I answered it. So
okay. I know. I'm just trying to dig deeper into why your reasoning is a certain way.
answering it, and then you're just asking the same question again.
Well, because you're not really explaining it very well, so I just want to dig deeper into your reasoning. Is why I'm asking follow-up questions.
I didn't realize that you were patronizing. You're gonna tell me I'm not explaining something well when I think I'm doing a perfectly fine job explaining it. You just disagree, which is okay.
No, I'm not inserting my opinion at all. No, I'm not actually.
You are actually. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
You're free to think that.
Thank you. I
Have
know
a
I
good
am.
day.
I love my opinion.
You too. Thank you. Happy Easter.